This episode is sponsored by the Space Pope.
We have you partially surrounded. No!
Have you ever just wanted to leave everything behind and explore a world of fancy and wonder, where all the things that made you an outcast or a weirdo suddenly don't matter, where you can live out your greatest dreams and finally find fulfillment and meaning? Well, too bad, bub, because even in a wacky and wild environment, you'll still have to deal with petty jerks, the awkwardness of social interactions with cruel strangers that will film you for their prank YouTube channels, and the mundanity of life. While it would be easy to say, like, oh, if I were just given the chance to do something incredible, then my life would matter, then I would be somebody. But in truth, the real journey begins within the self. If you're a slob now and don't change anything about yourself, then eventually you'll just be the slob who tamed the mighty moonworm. Yawn. Which is where Futurama comes into focus. It is a show all about exploring how selfish, lazy, and frustrated people exist and interact with fantastic and mesmerizing situations. It isn't being among crazy and wild scenarios that suddenly make good people, it is wonderful people that make these situations truly interesting. Oh sure, you could travel all the way to that one galaxy that smells like cranberries, but without someone to share in that decadent bouquet, then it just becomes a big ol' stinky cloud of fruity gas. Blech. Futurama reminds us that it is humanity, character, and love that make life exciting, fulfilling, and meaningful, regardless of how many space gators you can jump or crushionators you can charm. And really, as we begin to go through this amazing series, I really want to say right off the bat how much I appreciate that Futurama is able to blend personal drama, a laid-back, meh, someone else'll do it attitude, and moments of earnest emotion, all within a surreal, retro-futuristic world. It keeps things grounded in everyday personalities, while also allowing for spontaneous and outlandish situations to take place. There's a reason why it makes so many references to Star Trek, mostly because it takes a lot from that show's formula. That formula is also why I only started to write this Futurama review after making my own video talking about Star Trek, since I thought it was important to show how that series tends to focus on personal stories within a sci-fi landscape. Well, but that's what I intended to have happen before my video was taken down by Paramount. Anyway, maybe it's back up right now? I don't know, I disputed the claim. Whatever, go look, it's a great video if it's up. If it's not, then... Before that annoyance happened and ruined my whole week, I was gonna point out how both shows tend to focus on a core cast of likable characters and then expose them to all kinds of imaginative scenarios while remembering to keep things centered around interpersonal relationships and situations that lead to sexy results.
My friend and I have to go perform some mindless, repetitive tasks.
Sounds like a romantic evening.
So let's see how well the pilot episode of Futurama does in establishing the main goals of the show, getting us invested in these characters, and, this is just a thought, let's see how funny it really is. It opens with a much appreciated reference to the next generation and a particular arcade game.
Space. It seems to go on and on forever. But then you get to the end and the gorilla starts throwing barrels at you.
But as we pull back from this arcade scenario, we see our main character, Fry, who is aggressively established to be, rather unlucky in life.
You stink, loser!
Kids don't respect him, his boss yells at him, and even that pizza box at his job keeps him down. Love how spiteful that detail is. But hey, please, keep this under your hat. Don't give your local billionaire any ideas. Poor Fry even has to work on New Year's Eve while everyone around him is celebrating the advent of the year 2000. It really shows that he is out of step, undesired, and underappreciated. His girlfriend leaves him, his bike gets stolen, and the delivery itself ends up being a stupid prank.
Pizza delivery for, icy wiener.
This is Fry at his lowest point, where hope has gone to die. The future for Fry, if you can even call it a future, looks bleak beyond belief. That is, until this happens.
What the?
As the world crumbles and is reborn around him, Fry remains locked in his cryogenic prison, awaiting his rebirth. Fry awakens in the future, discovering that he stepped directly into a science fiction paradise.
It's December 31st, 2999.
My God, 1,000,000 years.
Oh god, that's so good. Now, what I really want to make clear right here in episode 1 of the Futurama reviews is that I will not be commenting on the plausibility of certain situations throughout the show. I have seen some people online, if you can call them people, discuss Futurama with too strict of a dedication to logic, and boy do these folks seem earnest about it. And I get it, STEM majors have to do something with their lives between creating atomic bombs, Agent Orange, and the Virtual Boy, but gosh, what a buzzkill these Poindexters really are. These kind of criticisms will say things like, excuse me, but while Fry is frozen and the whole city gets destroyed around him, are we supposed to believe that the building he's in is somehow miraculously untouched? Sure. Or, heads in jars, they die so fast without a digestive system or a way to process waste? Or worst of all, excuse me, the show said that these special booths have been America's favorite since 2008, but that didn't end up happening. Guess that prediction fell a little flat. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Even if these sort of thoughts are just for a joke or to fill the void in our otherwise drab lives, I consider these kind of comments to be the biggest waste of energy ever. It's like having a kid run up to you, excitedly showing you their drawing of them riding a dinosaur, and then saying, "Yeah right, that would never happen. That dinosaur, which by the way isn't a Brachiosaurus, it's an Apatosaurus, would flick you off so fast. And guess what? They'd probably also stomp you to death for bugging them." Shut up. I know some people will try to justify these criticisms by pointing out how smart some of the other jokes in the show can be, and how many of the writing staff had advanced degrees in science and mathematics, but you have to remember that there are times where bad logic is done intentionally in service to a joke. Does it make sense that in one episode Fry has to reinvent the wheel, an invention that seemingly no one has heard of, but then in other episodes we'll see vehicles that still use wheels? Of course it doesn't make sense. The emphasis isn't on creating a 100% consistent world, one that remembers all the little rules they've built up. We're just here for a bit of dumb fun, you dummies, tinctured with the occasional moment of brilliance. If the writers stuck true to all of the rules that they've established, then we would be robbed of countless delightful moments. Please remember, being funny is more important than being right or consistent.
That's not how it happened.
Oh, really? I don't see you with a fungineering degree.
I'd rather die laughing at Richard Dixon's disembodied head mauling Fry than live and smugly post on Reddit about how, in the pilot episode, Bender says he doesn't need to drink alcohol.
Why would a robot need to drink?
I don't need to drink. I can quit any time I want.
As a matter of fact, if you really want to be in the right 100% of the time, then you should stop watching this video right now, because logically, the instant Fry gets frozen, he dies. Of course, you could always try to justify it by saying the rest of the series is done with his imagination in the moments before death, but creating a fictional world inside of another fictional world is, let's admit it, just a little bit silly. So let's just keep it simple and say, I'm sorry, the show's over for you, Fry's dead. Bye-bye, enjoy leaving passive-aggressive sticky notes in the nonfiction section of the library.
I don't know how you did that.
For everyone else, your willingness to engage with strange and fanciful nonsense has rewarded you with a trip to the Fate Reassignment Center, which is manned by the person whose face has launched 1,000 love notes. You know, as I've gotten older, I've learned the secret behind finding someone as wonderful as Leela. All you have to do is get yourself a comfortable mattress, an exquisite pillow, a warm blanket, and then start dreaming, punk. What I love about the pilot's opening is that it only takes a few short minutes to go from Fry's existence in 1999 to this extremely engaging and strange situation. It doesn't waste time with a big lecture of how everything works or gets bogged down with like how much the world has changed or whatever. We are simply seeing things, picking up little bits of information as Fry does. Which gets us to Leela, who is this century's version of Fry, someone who has been locked into a drab and monotonous existence, which allows us to see just how mundane everything is for her.
Can I ask you a question?
As long as it's not about my eye. Is it about my eye?
Sort of.
Just ask the question.
What's with the eye?
Even though we might think this future looks cool and exciting, for her, someone who's grown up in the whole, mess of it all, she just regards it as whatever. For Leela, assigning Fry to his fated job and throwing him into the cold grasp of the probulator has no more excitement or interest for her than delivering a pizza had for Fry. In fact, this world has arguably done even more to break people down and settle them into their careers, giving us the most non-motivational poster ever.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
In a fit of panic, Fry flees, trapping Leela in his cryotube. But, importantly, to show that he's not a bad guy, he decides to only freeze her for 5 minutes instead of 1,000 years. It's little touches like that that go so far in establishing Fry's character. Oh sure, we bear witness to what Fry is willing to do most of the time, but it is key to show us what he won't do, what his moral and ethical boundaries are. That makes him feel much more like a flesh bag human, wouldn't you say? Now free to explore the world, Fry fumbles through New York, eventually ending up in this particular booth with this foul-mouthed robot.
Bite my shiny metal ass.
This is such a little detail, but I love how the booth only requires a quarter for its service. Delightfully grim. After the pair get ripped off and don't get released from this mortal coil or get their quarter back, the two decide to do the next best thing and go get a couple of beers. This establishes that even the usually free-spirited and unbound robot population are locked into prescribed jobs. This notion of inescapable fate is deepened by a trip to the Head Museum, where the price of being reborn is to simply exist as a marginally interesting bit of outdated knowledge. And hey look, they even got Mr. Spock himself to voice Leonard Nimoy.
We share our wisdom with those who seek it.
But at least you're allowed to maintain some level of dignity and reverence.
Feeding time!
Or not. And I have to say, of all the futuristic tech shown off in Futurama, I think the heads in the jars might be my favorite one. Oh sure, they exist mostly as an excuse to get celebrity cameos, but they're so damned iconic, and boy do the writers really get their mileage out of these gags. Leading the cops to Fry and Bender, Leela witnesses a bit of Lucas-inspired battery, which ends up pushing her too far.
Keep your big nose out of this, eyeball.
No one makes fun of my nose.
Again, the show is keeping things focused on emotion and personality. Leela isn't a fascinating person because of her eyeball or big nose. She's a fire plug, one who will go along with the rules until it goes against her morals or severely inconveniences her. In a way, this burgeoning trio is a perfect sliding scale of morality, with Bender being near the villain side, Fry being mostly neutral, and Leela being an upstanding citizen who will occasionally indulge in kicking butt. But unlike some sitcom sourpusses, Leela isn't so dedicated to the notion of the greater good that she won't slide into moments of anger, laziness, or just "I can't deal with these jerks anymore" attitude. That makes her so interesting because you can't automatically assume how she'll behave on any given subject. Some may call that inconsistent writing, but I find that it tends to lend her a real human dimension. And besides people in comas, none of us are really locked into one personality trait. Sometimes we'll have off days where, you know what, just we decide to do something a little out of character. It really says a lot about the strength of a show when the three main leads could easily take over an entire episode all on their own. Now I do have to criticize this next portion, as them being trapped in the closet of criminals does lose a bit of momentum. We go from run 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 to stall stall stall. And Bender is being unusually stiff and dedicated to his programming, which is a feature that really only appears in the pilot. And yet I can forgive it because it's being done just to fit in the theme of this episode, which is the notion of breaking free. In fact, Fry himself even lays out the main thesis in no uncertain terms.
It's up to you to make your own decisions in life. That's what separates people and robots from animals and animal robots.
And I think this works fine as is. It is just a little bit weird to see Bender acting so passive when his entire personality becomes about doing whatever he wants. This is less of a logical inconsistency and more of a note about not quite being the Bender we all know and fantasize about. Thank God he gets electrocuted and becomes more willing to bend what he wants, when he wants, who he wants. Oh, and by the way, I think this is my pick for the best line delivery and joke of the pilot.
Wait!
No thanks.
Ah, so quick, so snappy, so good. As Fry and Bender escape, they run into the ancient ruins of old New York, and here's where I really want to give Futurama a lot of credit for its amazing backgrounds and set designs. Unlike its contemporaries like Family Guy or King of the Hill, Futurama's backgrounds are vibrant and packed with incredible colors and details. The only pilot from this era that I would say comes as close to looking this good is probably the Batman animated series pilot, and that came out 7 years before this, so the fact that they're even comparable is really saying a lot in the Batman series' favor. But really though, the next time you watch the Futurama pilot, just turn off the sound for a little bit and take in all of these sights. I think you'll find that there's a lot more to feast your eyes on than you once thought. In any case, once Leela catches up with Fry and Bender, the two go through a little bit of a bonding moment. The reality of Fry's isolation begins to set in as he realizes that everyone and everything he's ever known is gone, and Leela says that she understands him, being that she is the only Cyclops on the planet, getting us to the first genuine expression of sympathy and relatability in the show, which is then promptly ruined so we don't get too sappy. Instead of hauling Fry in, Leela digs out her career chip, effectively quitting her job and putting her in the same boat as Fry and Bender. And rather than succumbing to despair, they decide to do what any good person would do in this situation, mooch off of Fry's elderly nephew. And this gets us introduced to Fry's distant descendant, the eccentric and infinitely quotable Dr. Hubert Farnsworth, who shows off all kinds of scientific wonders. And he gives us a sneak peek at his drawer full of amazingly different colored wires. Oh, jeez. Oh, and something about a spaceship or something. But the wires, look, they're different lengths too. For some reason, the gang decides to ignore the treasure trove of wire and head for the ship, preparing to do a daring escape from the cops and Mr. Nixon. And wouldn't you know it, the countdown to the new year happens to line up perfectly with the countdown to their very first liftoff.
Excuse me, the time zone differences mean that this couldn't all be happening around the same time throughout the world. In reality, this should be happening at...
There's no time for that bullcrap. We've gotta go. We've gotta blast off into that grand and adventurous new year, the year 3 million! This literally signifies their escape from their drab reality, from their stupid existence as worker bees. They are no longer bound by fate and can fly into space, free to explore however they please, without worry or fear of consequences. In fact, the professor even allows for a permanent solution to their job crisis, offering them career chips from his previous crew. These chips are suspiciously taken from a folder that is labeled with this tongue twister, which I want you to try to say with me here. Let's take a deep breath. Contents of Space Wasp's stomach. Ugh. God, I had to do that take like 10 times. Contents of Space Wasp's stomach? Ugh. Anyway, neat. What's Fry's new job? What new destiny has he taken hold of?
You'll be responsible for ensuring that the cargo reaches its destination. So I'm gonna be a delivery boy? Exactly.
Well, they don't call it fate for nothing. But importantly, this gives Fry something that we all desire, the illusion of choice. As nice as it is to say that we are totally free to do whatever we want, whenever we want, there are still some basic laws of existence that bind us all. Can we really escape things like work, duty, and the confines of our own minds? Not really, but while it is easy to feel claustrophobic about that, I believe the world is what we make of it, and that our attitude goes a long way towards improving our lives. Could Fry have just turned down the professor's job offer? Sure, but now he knows that the deliveries will be done throughout space instead of in his crappy little small town of New York, and that means he'll be able to come in contact with all sorts of new experiences. What was originally a dreadful life of meaningless labor has now been transformed into a source of joy. Instead of regarding his job as a wellspring of misery, he chooses to see it as an opportunity for excitement. He has escaped his life's predestined destination and run into the open arms of destiny. He isn't just a delivery boy, he is Fry, the delivery boy. He has broken out of his chains and found himself a supportive hammock of chainmail.
All right! I'm a delivery boy!
Best of all, he's managed to come into contact with a few other refugees of misery, creating a dynamic team that will see him throughout this adventure. But really, Futurama isn't truly about these characters. No, it is about us, the audience, and about what we can get out of Futurama. It isn't just a way to escape our own drab lives. It is an experience that is somehow both nostalgic and futuristic, surreal and familiar, comforting and confrontational. In essence, Futurama asks and answers its own question, that being, what does it mean to live? Well, I can't wait to dig even deeper into the series and find all of the answers it has to offer. So how do I feel about this pilot episode? Well, I think of it very fondly. It proceeds at a brisk pace and is eager to show us all the fun and wacky ideas it has, again, much like a child showing us a drawing that they have spent all afternoon on. And like a bright child with big goals and bigger dreams, it demonstrates a frighteningly sweet and intelligent nature, presenting us with a warm hug while also attempting to pick our pocket. The pilot gives you just enough to ignite your imagination, to present likable and relatable characters, and leave you wanting to explore the future. It's one of the greatest TV shows for a reason, and I consider myself lucky to live in a time where I get to watch and review it. And in that spirit, please join me next time, where we'll be going on a trip to the happiest place ever to collide with the Earth, the Moon.
I'll have to confiscate your alcohol, sir.
Better mascots than you have tried.
Until then, we can say that this episode of Futurama, titled Space Pilot 3000, has indeed been reviewed to death. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Have a nice future.
Cool, just like in Star Trek. Oh!